So today I'd like to piggyback off of what Anne talked about last time in series or the webinar number 5. And she talked about, getting connected with interviewers, and setting up your, how to prepare for the interview, how to target certain jobs that you're after, and how to go into those sessions with the right frame of mind. So what I'd like to do today is focus on winning the interview. So after you've had the infrastructure and you're sitting in front of the interviewer, how do you proceed, right? How do you win that interview so that you can walk away feeling not only good about yourself, but with a job, right? And that's the goal. So before I begin, just a little background about me in case you missed my last presentation. And I really botched this slide. I was really proud of it because this is really who I am, right? This is my career at a glance on one page. I walk into interviews, when I'm interviewing myself, I walk in with this as my calling card, right? This is everything that I've accomplished over the last 20 years. And besides the resume, besides the cover letter, this is really it. And I want you guys to think out of the box for a moment. If everyone has a resume and has a cover letter and they've polished it, everything looks fantastic, how do you separate yourself from the Joneses, right? How do you become something more than just another sheet of paper on somebody's pile? So I decided my out-of-the-box thinking led to something like this, where if I'm sitting in front of an interviewer, I would say, look, I'm a professor in all these colleges. I have a hospitality background going from Pizza Hut to Extended Stay America. I'm an author of 2 books. I've been a director of training for the last 18 years. And here's my education, Cal Poly undergrad and University of Redlands MBA. It's a starting point, right? So if you don't differentiate yourself somehow, and it doesn't have to be something like this, I call it the career wheel, but it doesn't have to be this. It could be something that differentiates yourself from everyone else. So let's remind ourselves that there are a lot of unemployed people. At the height of the pandemic in April, there was 40 million unemployment claims filed, and that's a scary number. So if if that's you today, or you know someone that's unemployed, it's not over. There's going to be more before this thing's over. Before they find a vaccine, companies are looking to reduce headcount. They're looking to cut payroll somehow. So a lot of companies have rotated towards giving pay cuts to even experienced employees who have been there 10, 20, 30 years, 30% pay cuts. Some companies have decided to eliminate the bonus for 2020. Why? Because they need to remain profitable. Let's not kid ourselves into thinking everything's rosy out there right now, but we need to be mindful of how do we prepare ourselves in case that happens to us. So, Haley, let me ask you a question. You may have seen this in my last presentation, but what do you see on the screen right now? You can turn your mic on and indulge us for a moment.
I see a red dot, but I also see the space around it as well.
Okay, and what does the surrounding, what does the landscape around the red dot tell you? What's that a symbol of?
I kind of remember your talk before, but I think it's like the possibilities that you can fulfill that space.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So these are, the white space is simply opportunity. It's the space that you want to capture. It's your target audience or your target company. It's whatever you haven't achieved yet. So there's a whole lot more white than red, but unfortunately, what we often focus on is the red, what's in front of us. I want us to look beyond what's in front of us and see what is not seen yet. Okay? To improve is to change. To be perfect, though, is to change often. Now, I've once created a resume 25 years ago, and I've never stopped updating that resume. Why? Because I anticipate getting laid off every single day of my life. As good as I think I am, as valuable as I think I am to my organizations, I could be let go at any time, and I need to be prepared for the inevitable. I have a family to support. I have 3 kids and a wife who require me to be employed, to keep bringing home the bacon, so to speak. And they're counting on me. So remember, one of those 2 fears that I talked about last time is the fear of letting people down. And the other one being is the fear of, failing, obviously. Those are my 2 driving forces. And in this particular case, as Winston said, we need to change often, especially when the economy and the job market is changing. It requires it. So let's be mindful of that. Charlie Chaplin and Einstein once met. And Einstein said to Chaplin, "What I admire about you is you don't say anything, but people understand you." Chaplin turned to Einstein and said, "But your glory goes far beyond mine. The entire world admires you, but no one understands you." So here we have 2 things. On the Chaplin side, he's an expressionist, while Einstein is all about speech and dialogue. And if there's one thing that I can impress on you on this particular call, it is you need to be both. You need to be the cheerleader, the rah-rah person when you're in front of an interviewer. You also need to be buttoned down, polished. You need to have that speech so ready that no one else will do but you in getting that job. So you need to be both. Now, we're going to talk about being prepared or showing up with the right attitude in a moment, but please keep these 2 words in mind: expression and speech. If you don't like how the table is set, then turn over the table. You might not like where you are in your career today. You might aspire for something bigger, but how do you position yourself to get there? This is a beautiful table, but I may not like it for my guests. So what do? Am I going to leave it there? And as my guests sit down or look at the table, am I going to say, "Oh my gosh, I should have done this. I should have moved that spoon over. It should have been, that plate should have been lower on the edge," right? That's the wrong time to be thinking those details. If you don't like the way something looks, whether that's your attitude, your demeanor, your resume, fix it. Who but you is going to fix that, right? So we're going to talk about these 4 things today. At a very high level. Time does not permit for us to go down in the weeds, but we're certainly going to talk about preparing your packet, making a great first impression, executing the plan, and following up after the interview. And I believe these 4 things are what's going to separate or differentiate you from everyone. So let's start with preparing your packet. I mentioned the career wheel. That is one way that I have chosen to separate myself from everyone else. You may have a better idea. Whatever it is, do it. Don't just walk in with a resume and a cover letter. Your resume, or some companies call it a CV, curriculum vitae, Latin, is basically your calling card, right? It tells the employer, the potential employer, a little bit about your background, your education, your skills, and anything that you want to highlight for them in your profile. These days, computers have taken over, and there's a filter that a lot of companies are using to weed out people that may not be the right fit in that organization. So if you don't have the right verbiage on your resume, you may get tossed out before a recruiter, a human being, even looks at your resume. So it's very important, and very important advice I'm about to share with you. When you're looking at the job posting online, make sure you capture or you have those words, those buzzwords on your resume, so that if a computer is filtering out, you have the minimum requirements that are going to at least get you in front of the hiring manager. For example, if you're trying to apply for a teaching position and you don't talk about or if the job posting says minimum K through 12 teaching experience, 3 years, or online teaching experience, whatever the case may be, if you don't put those words that you have taught online, that you have taught on campus, that you have taught kindergarteners through the 3rd grade, for example, then the computer may kick you out. because maybe you're a mechanical engineer and it's looking for specific wording on your resume to pass you through to the next person. Your cover letter is also important. Don't restate everything that's on your resume. Instead, have some bullets there and a paragraph or two that really separates you from other people. If someone doesn't have time to go through your resume, then your cover letter is your so-called executive summary or abstract that alone should sell you to the hiring manager and say, I want this guy, I want this gal in front of me for an interview. So very important. Also, now is the right time. If you're looking for a job, start collecting letters of recommendation. If you've worked and you have a relationship with higher ups in your company, maybe the president, maybe the CEO, whoever that is, especially your boss, if you have a good working relationship with them, have them write you a letter of recommendation. 2 at minimum, but the more the merrier. The most I've had to submit during a job or applying for a job has been 3, never less than 2. So always have at least 2 on hand. And again, the higher up the company food chain you go, the better, right? Because there's more credibility there, hopefully. Also, list your references now. I can't tell you the number of times when applying online, I've had to look up people's phone numbers or email addresses from the colleges in which I teach, and that gets to be a bit tedious, right? I'm teaching at 5 places, and I need 5 faculty lead email addresses at that moment. I have to go back and forth and dig out an email. It's just a pain in the butt. So my recommendation to you, no one's going to ask you for this list, but for your own purposes to expedite the application process, have a list of references handy with the person's name, their organization, email address, and phone number at minimum. Also, if you don't have college transcripts, get them now. Your Cal Poly, diploma or transcript rather, ask for it from the registrar's office. It's like 14 bucks or something. They'll send it to you in an envelope. You'll have to open it and scan it to upload it in your system, but it's called an unofficial copy, but nevertheless, some employers require it, and you'll have to have that ready and ready when they ask. Now, I want to talk next about making a great first impression. Now, guys, I like to dress up. I feel like I owe it to my audience to be as professional as possible, but I want you to sink these images in your soul and ask yourself if these are professional looking people to go into an interview looking like this. Now, one would argue, depending on the position, right? If you're applying at as a coach in a high school varsity basketball team, perhaps dressing down, not being in a suit, might be appropriate. But I would never go into an interview looking like this with a tank top, flip-flops, unshaven, right? Without clipping my fingernails. And you guys want to hear an interesting story. So I was in I forget which one it was, BJ, maybe you can remind me, but Sandy Kapoor was teaching us cooking. It was the first cooking class. You guys have all taken it. It's where you learn about
281.
381. Thank you.
381.
381.
Yeah.
One of those two. One of those. I know there's a 1 in it. So we were learning how to make soups and sauces and salads. And the first day, she had us line up, and she said, "Put your hands out like this." And I'm like, "What the heck is she doing? This is really strange. No other teacher's ever done this." And she was checking our fingernails. Mine had not been trimmed in maybe a week. And she sent me to the vending machine to buy a clipper to be prepared for class. And I never forgot that. I'm 26 years removed from that class. And to this day, guys, I look at my nails every morning to make sure you can't see or it hasn't gone haywire overnight, because that's discipline. And that is what is required in this economy, in this environment. That discipline is what's going to allow you to get out of bed and say, you know what, this suit is all that we'll do today. I am going to go in there and wow the interviewer. I'm going to command that they listen to me. I'm going to demand that they appreciate my skill set. And at the end of which, I want them to believe that there is no better candidate than Eddie Loussararian for this job. So every little detail that you do today in preparation for your interview tomorrow matters. What I'm trying to impress upon you guys is don't wait until the last minute, because if you haven't done the previous things that I mentioned, such as get your resume, your transcripts, your cover letter, if you don't do all the infrastructure stuff in advance of getting that call, it's already too late and you've lost the battle. Simply put, having a great suit, being shaven, having your fingernails clipped is part of the package, but it's not the package. So everything else I'm talking about today is important as well. Hopefully you guys are taking notes. Now, let's talk a little bit about winning the interview. If I said early or being early is actually on time, would you guys believe me? In other words, most people stroll in 5 minutes before their meeting and they believe they're on time. Well, in their own mind, that might be the case, but that employer might have a different impression of you. That employer might have an understanding that this person showed up late because they weren't here 15 minutes early, because that shows that perhaps you were rushing, you weren't prepared, you didn't think about this, you're not taking it seriously. So I want you guys to really believe in everything that I'm about to share on this page as your roadmap to success. So be early. How early? That's up to you, but certainly more than 5 minutes before the call. I choose to be there a half hour beforehand so I can get a lay of the land, and I'm not surprised at where I need to be, who I need to see. They know I'm there. When it's time, they'll come and get me. But I owe it to the employer to be there early. Plan the route and your wardrobe at night. And Ann talked about this in webinar number 5. Don't get lost. Don't plan to get lost. Beforehand, make sure you know how to get there. I've gone to the lengths of driving to the location beforehand, a day or two before, just so I didn't get lost. I'm not advising you to get that anal, but you know what? If it's meaningful or if it means something to you and you really want to land that job, then you go out of the box, right? Your wardrobe. I planned this wardrobe last night. I laid out my clothes last night. Why? Because what if I overslept this morning? What if I couldn't decide whether to wear the white shirt with this tie or my blue suit instead of the black suit? What if I had one of those moments that I wasn't prepared and I didn't give myself enough time for this presentation? That would be disrespectful to you guys, wouldn't it? And similarly, by doing all of those things or not doing those things, you're being disrespectful to the employer. And that potential employer is going to say, hey, this person was late. An excuse like there was traffic, you can say that all day long and they can make you feel like it's okay. But deep down, that's not okay. So make sure you're on time or you're early and you've planned to be there dressed to the nines. Be childlike, but not childish. I'm a very informal person and I'm an introvert at the core. But right now, guys, because there's an audience in front of me and because I want you guys to get the most out of my presentation, I need to kick my enthusiasm up a notch. I'm normally not this way. Barbara Jean will attest to that. I am very humdrum. I'm a boring kind of guy, but in front of an audience, I need to be a little more childlike and up my game, right? So that you guys have a good experience. Fight for what is yours. If you really want that job, then you're going to go in there with the right attitude, the right frame of mind, and you're going to fight for it. You're not going to accept no. And even if you don't get that job, I want you to continue to fight and ask why I didn't get this job. I was perfectly qualified for this job according to your job profile. Why didn't I get the job? Right? It takes that level of fight to get the next one. Let's face it, we're not going to be in harmony or in sync with every interviewer. While we believe we're the perfect candidate, there could be something that is driving their decision against you. In other words, not in your favor. There could be an internal candidate that they're grooming for that position. And that person finally said yes during your interview, behind closed doors. You'll never know that. They'll never admit the real reason. But I never want you guys to stop fighting the good fight. A firm handshake at hello. Don't give me this, like some people do. They shake hands with their fingertips, kind of like this, and they believe that's a handshake. That is not. That shows weakness. I want you to go firm handshake all the way to the end. Extend your hand out at hello, and let them believe that you are a strong person, that you can handle whatever that job requires. Your body language is essential. Never break eye contact with the person. There could be an explosion outside. Don't break eye contact with the individual, because that shows disrespect. It shows them that your mind is somewhere else. Don't cross your arms. Don't fidget in your seat. Don't roll your eyes. Stay put. And your body language tells a lot about what's happening inside your soul. So if you don't want them to read too much about you being an introvert or you disagreeing, perhaps you said something about your current employer or past employer that didn't rub the right way, and you have a bone to pick with your boss, it's going to come out in your body language. So make sure you leave all of that baggage, as I'm going to talk about on the next slide, at home. Next, read the room. This is really important, as if everything I'm saying is not important, but this one's of particular importance to me because it's an icebreaker. Now, I'm at first, when I'm in a new setting, I tend to be uncomfortable until I loosen up, I break the ice, I crack some jokes, and to the extent that the interviewer allows me to continue on having a lively conversation with them, then I'll be more comfortable as we continue to talk. So when I say read the room, I'm talking about identifying connections. Perhaps they've also written a book. And if I see their name on the bottom of that book, then of course I'm going to talk about my book, right? Because we have an immediate connection. If they have pictures of their children, then start talking about that. Hey, how does your child like distance learning? How old are your children? I have 3 of my own. And something will be an icebreaker if you just identify something in the room that is of interest to both of you. There's a vacation photo. Maybe it's of the Hearst Castle, Robert. Maybe that could spark a discussion about your travel, likes and dislikes. And maybe they share a common interest. And all of a sudden they say, oh, you know what? Robert's a cool guy. He's traveled to Monterey, so have I. He enjoys Big Sur, so do I. There's a little more to Robert than just a resume, right? So you separated yourself just by your identification of what's in the room and potentially something that interests the interviewer. Stay engaged. Don't start thinking about what you're going to do after the interview. Your mind has to be right there for the duration of that call or meeting. Stay on point. Don't drift off in the weeds. Don't go on tangents. Stay in the moment with that person. Leave the baggage at home. Number 10. This is really important, and a lot of failure points come from this very point, especially for people who have been hurt or traumatized by their boss. You've heard of toxic bosses out there. There are some people who carry that baggage on their heart for years. And if that's you today, let me tell you, it's not going to help you get your job. If you are still bad-mouthing after years, your boss, and you still recount the bad experience you had in that toxic work environment, it ain't going to help you get that job. So heed my advice, leave the baggage at home. When you get home, if you still want to talk about what happened 10 years ago, then do so behind closed doors. But you should never portray a negative image of yourself, especially since you've worked so hard to get to the big dance in all the preparation you've done to that point. Don't ruin it, in other words, because of something that you're harboring all this ill will from years past. A firm handshake at goodbye is also appropriate. Get the interviewer's business card so that you can send them a thank you note. We'll talk about that shortly. And then practice until you're comfortable with what's going to happen the next day. So you might put somebody in front of you. You might talk in front of a mirror, but definitely practice, guys. It's really important. It's important that your ears hear what you're saying so that you can course correct if you don't like the way it came out of your mouth. And you'll never get that unless you practice. Here's a little bit more about leaving your baggage at home. A bad attitude is like putting blinders on a horse. It keeps all other avenues hidden from view. So if I am only thinking about the bad experience I had, the trauma caused by my previous boss, then I'm, in essence, not seeing things peripherally, and I am only focused on that one thing. I become myopic, in other words, right? And as I am single-minded or single-focused, it clouds me, or it takes my focus away from winning that interview. The next point really is important too. Stop looking for gray clouds and start noticing silver linings. If you only see gray clouds as you get out of your house, then how are you going to make that a positive day? Whether it's for an interview or not, it doesn't matter. But if you want to have an image of success and professionalism, and if you want to be happy generally, then you got to get out of bed saying the world around me is fantastic. You'll never hear me say when asked, how are you doing, Eddie? You'll never hear me say, oh, you know what, I'm having a shitty day today. Those words will never come out of my mouth. Why? For two reasons. Number one, I want to project an image of, and number two, you could be having a good day, and by my gray cloud hovering over your head that day or at that moment, I could bring your happiness down. And I don't want to influence somebody negatively like that. So again, focus on silver linings and you'll generally have a better life. Just run your race. Right now, winning the interview is your only job. Okay, if you're looking, then that's your job. Think about it like that. And don't worry about what happened in the last 3 interviews. Don't worry that your ego is bruised because you still haven't had somebody say yes to you. It's your job to win the next one. So get it done. Never badmouth the previous employer. I think we've talked about that ad nauseum. Your demeanor can sabotage the process before it begins. That too, I've already talked about. Never badmouth your employer. Speak positively. Why did you leave? Well, I'm ready for a different start. I want to grow my career. I'm trying to get to the next level. And my current employer, although it has been a fantastic experience for me thus far after 18 years, I'm ready to see what the next phase of my life has in store for me. And I have targeted your company as allowing me to get there. I believe that I'm going to grow in your company. I believe that I'm going to influence people in your company, right? These are important buzzwords that the hiring manager wants to hear. Not only what do you have at stake, but what are you going to offer them that they currently can't get through anyone else? So speak in those terms. Check your ego at the door. It is not the time to be the know-it-all or overbearing. Yes, I know it all. I know a lot. I don't know it all, though. Don't project yourself as this person that can solve the world's problems, because you can't. There could be a growth opportunity out there, but if you're narrow-minded, if you have these blinders on that our horse friend here has, then you're going to miss making an inroad with that hiring manager. No one wants to be around somebody who's overbearing, especially in an interview, because that is what, in essence, you're saying to them. If I'm reacting in a controlled environment like this, and I'm talking about myself in a way that doesn't really project a positive professional image, then what's going to happen in the trenches when I'm not around, or when the hiring manager is not around, or when the VP is not around? How is this person, Eddie, going to treat his employee base? How is he going to get work done through others if he thinks he knows it all, right? These little things matter. So the impressions that you leave in that interview matter. Follow up after the interview. If there's, I'm going to talk about anchors or bookends for a moment. The first bookend is your packet, where people often fail, okay? They prepare a resume. It's not really complete. It's, it's not their best work. They haven't put in a whole lot of thought. And that's one of the bookmarks. The other bookend, rather, is your follow-up. We do a very poor job as a race, let's call it, of following up. And I don't understand why that is. It's so simple. You send a thank you note, right? You after the interview, this is why I asked you guys to get a business card during the interview. You want to formally thank them for giving you a piece of their time, a portion of their day, and to teach you or inform you of what the job entails, what your role will be. So you want to thank the individual. It's not difficult, but it's necessary and often forgotten. So if you want to separate yourselves from the rest of the pack, do this and do it immediately after, or as I like to do it, before the interview even starts. I think I mentioned to you, not I think, I know I did, but if you were on the last call 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that I send thank you notes before the interview even begins. Why? Because I don't want to risk the mail getting delayed, or for whatever reason it doesn't get to them right away. And I want to be prepared, and thus I am sending things out in the mail a day or two before the interview even occurs. Now, if that interview gets canceled, then you're kind of showing your hand, right? Because now they're going to read that card before they even meet you, which, look, I like to be proactive and not reactive. So do it anyway, whether it's canceled or not, get it done. Be brief, friendly, and conversational. Restate your interest in the job and any relevant details about your qualifications. It's as simple as this. Your subject line could read, "Thank you for your time." And then in the body, you're going to open up with their name. "Dear Barbara Jean, thank you so much for spending time with me. I learned a lot about your company. I really appreciate you informing me of the challenges your company is facing. Here's what I've done in my career to, overcome those similar challenges." And then list them again. There's no harm in restating what you said, because weeks could pass, 10 other interviews could pass. How are they going to remember you over your competition? This thank you note could be that reminder. I prefer handwritten notes. It's more personal than an email, because an email shows that it could mean that you recycled it. You could have had 50 other interviews and you're just copying and pasting from one to the other. That's not as personal for me as if you wrote a handwritten note. So that requires somebody's time. It's old school, right? But it is much appreciated, and it is what's going to separate you from the Joneses. Now, you're at a slight disadvantage these days in that most recruiters are working from home. So chances of them seeing your handwritten notes in the corporate mailbox is probably slim until they get back to work. So I would do both. I would send an email and the card, and make sure that one way or another they see that you're grateful for the opportunity and that you really want the job. Add any significant information you may have forgotten in the interview. "Hey, Barbara Jean, I forgot to mention that I have actually rolled out that very program that is challenging your company. Over a 2-year period, I introduced that program, or a new CRM tool, to 1,000 employees, and this is what I did to roll it out, to make sure that it was sustainable, that people were using the tool, et cetera, et cetera." But that's the time. That may be your one last shot to influence the hiring manager and show them how you're going to solve one of their problems. You're a problem solver. There's no other reason for them to open up a job search other than there's a gaping hole in their organization, and they need to fill that job. Otherwise, the hiring manager may be doing the work himself or herself. So they need your expertise. They need you to, obviously show that you are interested and that you're not a job hopper. You know how many times I've been in, debriefing sessions after we interviewed candidates, and somebody threw out, "Hey, on their resume, it looks like they've been hopping from job to job, and we need more, somebody that's going to be around for a while." So you may have to explain why you only have 1 year or less of experience with your last 6 companies. So be prepared for those types of tough questions. But in the end, how do you show them or prove to them that you are absolutely the right, best person for that job. Wait a week and call the recruiter, exude confidence, don't sound desperate. A lot of people don't do this. Why? Because they think, I've interviewed, it went well, I sent the thank you note, that's all I need to do. But this really shores up any gaps in the hiring manager's mind or the recruiter's mind that you are definitely interested. And again, don't sound desperate, but you want to leave a little bit room for negotiation when it comes down to salary, but it's important, right? Prove to me that you want the job. It's yours for the taking, but you have to prove to me that you're worthy and that you're the best fit. If you haven't read my book, guys, I strongly encourage you to open it up. Every one of you have it. There are pages and pages that focus on your career. There are tips in here that are going to perhaps separate you from the next person. There may be an attitudinal shift that is needed that you're going to get from a resource like this. There are great resources like this. This is just one of them. But do something different today than you did yesterday. Because if all you're doing is clicking apply, apply, apply 50 times over, and you're expecting a different result, and you haven't changed anything about your packet or your approach, then I think that your results are going to be similar in that you're going to get more no's than that much desired yes. So this is a process. Do not get discouraged. And remember, you are one of potentially thousands of people who believe they are the most qualified person for that job as well. And I want you to use these principles that we've talked about this morning for your advantage to get that job, and not only get in front of the hiring manager, but to win the interview. It's not difficult, but it does take a process. You have to follow this process. So again, 4 things. You're going to prepare your packet. You're going to have a great interview. You're going to follow up with a thank you note. You're going to dress for success, right? You're going to be early. You're going to show them that you're the best candidate and that they can't live without you. And you're not going to be cocky. You're going to be humble. You're going to speak positively about your past employers and your supervisor. And you're going to go in there with the right frame of mind. And if you don't get the job, don't be discouraged, but definitely follow up with them so you can improve upon that one thing that may have kicked you out. And I think some of you may understand this point, and forgive me for going, I'm not getting religious on anyone, but I do want to make this point. Sometimes it's just not in God's plan for you to get that job. Sometimes God has something better for you in mind, that if you force the issue and you continue to push in this direction that you believe is best for your life, it may not be the best part, or it may not be the best job that is in his plans for your life. So don't be discouraged. It's very simple, especially today. You may have graduated years ago and you're still looking for a job. It is a tough market to get a job. People are cutting payroll, not adding to it. People are looking to shave off headcount so that their bottom line, their balance sheet can look healthier. It is a difficult time. Do not be discouraged, guys. Every day do something that is going to put yourself in position for the next opportunity. That said, what questions do you have? And by the way, my contact information is available to you guys. I am available 24/7 to you if at any point you want to talk. Email me, please, or call me. I'd be happy to help. I was in your shoes many years ago, right? I graduated, I took all the same classes you did. I had the same instructors that you did for the most part. So I know what you're going through. It's not easy, but I am willing, just like Drake is, to give back. I'm willing to give back to you guys, right? Drake did orientations for the incoming class, which is awesome. So sometimes we need to reach out and tap a resource that is available or making himself or herself available to get us over that hump. So if that's you today, please let me know. I'd be happy to help. No strings attached. You can, use me however you like. If you need a reference, I'd be happy to write one for you. But definitely tap into resources that you have. Cal Poly, our Collins College guys, is a fantastic network for you. And I'm so pleased that Anne and the leadership, around her decided to do such an event like this. I don't remember in my 26 years after graduation, such a wonderful opportunity to tap into resources like what Anne's put together. And again, if you're not using your network, there's another opportunity to land a job, right? Ask around. Hey, Anne, do you have any openings at Cal Poly? I'm teaching at all these universities, right? What do? I want to get into Cal Poly because that would be like my pie in the sky dream to be mentioned in the same breath as Margie Jones or Leslie or Barbara Jean. I want to be part of that elite group. But I've never been given the opportunity for whatever reason. But I'm not bitter about it. I'm just waiting for my opportunity. In the meantime, I am asking, what do I need to do to land at my alma mater? And that's the attitude I want you guys to have. The bitter person would have said, you know what? They don't deserve me. All these other places like what they're seeing in me, but you guys don't. So screw you. It's your loss. That's the wrong attitude because number one, you're bringing your own attitude down. That joy quickly goes away. Instead, what can I do to better support my alma mater? And here we are, guys. When Anne called me in May, I jumped at the opportunity to be part of this group. That's the attitude that's going to get you where you want to be in life. Servant leadership is the way to go. It's not all about you. It is about giving back first. And as you give back, people are going to recognize your talents, your willingness to help. And that's what is really going to bolster your credibility and your teamwork, right? And then people will start jumping on your bandwagon. So maybe you volunteer, maybe you do an internship, maybe you do something out of the box. And to the extent that you do it well, like I know you will, because you're a Collins College alum, you will be recognized in due time. Maybe not in your time, but it's far better to be recognized in God's time than in your time. So do it for the right reasons. And I'm going to shut up now and allow you guys to ask questions. So
thank you so much, Eddie. We have time for just about 5 minutes worth of questions. I did put my virtual confetti behind me. We're so happy I've been doing some type of alumni speaker series since early April. So been an amazing 4 months of speakers and the journey to bring everyone along. And we're just so happy to have everyone here with us. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so Casey has a question. Virtual interviewing is new to me. Practicing is a good idea, correct? Looking at the camera, not the screen while speaking, making sure posture and lighting is important. Do you have any tips on virtual interviewing, Eddie?
Definitely. Whatever you would do in a in-person interview, like dressing up, is a priority, right? So don't drop your guard, Casey. Don't say, oh, I'm at home now, they'll understand if I don't shave. No, they won't, right? I've been on a couple of interviews and also webinars like this, where the people on the other end were surprised that I actually dressed up. And everyone's wearing a t-shirt, a polo, etc. Respect, Casey, when you dress up, because if you're the only one standing out in that crowd, then they're going to pay attention to you, right? And whatever you would do in person, do that on a virtual call. That means good body language, your posture and your approach, preparedness. I was here a half hour before, right? I could have just dialed in 5 minutes before the call, but it's important enough for me to make sure that I'm prepared and that you have a great experience out of this conversation. So don't drop your guard just because it's virtual. That's the best advice I can give you.
Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate that. Also, since this is likely our first impression with them, looking at the camera when speaking instead of the screen, the lighting, you know, looking at the few of you who are on cam, I see a large variation in lighting. You would agree that all of that is important as well, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you guys go back to Barbara Jean's presentation, I made the mistake of sitting in a different spot than where I'm sitting right now. And it's like 5 feet away from here, but my office is not as brightly lit as it is today. And unfortunately, she took a picture, or she asked for a group photo to be taken when I was sitting in that other spot, and my face is black. So I didn't come out very good. And I can only imagine how you guys are seeing me or were seeing me. But look, there's a decision that cost me, because 10 years from now, someone's going to look at that image, or maybe Barbara Jean looks at that image and gets nostalgic, and she says, I wonder what Eddie looks like, you know? And, or I can't remember this Eddie character. And she brings up that photo and my face is black, right? What kind of an impression did I leave on Barbara Jean that day? So guys, it's important. If it's important enough to show up, you might as well do so with the right quality and be prepared. Your body language is looking at that camera square and versus looking away, because this is telling you, as I'm looking away, even if you can't see my phone, I'm fidgeting, I'm flipping from text to text, that's going to send you the wrong message that you're not important to me. So you're absolutely right, Casey. Body language, looking at that camera, proper lighting, all of it, bring it.
All right, let's see. Lots of thank yous in the chat. So yes, it's been so much fun to see all of you, get to know some new alumni, as well as connect with some of the alumni that I've known since you were students. So thank you, Eddie. I did put the link to Eddie's LinkedIn if you want to connect with him on LinkedIn, as well as the link to his book as well on Amazon. I dropped that in the chat so you can access that. And Eddie, do you want to put your email address in the chat for everyone as well, so that they would like to connect with you?
For sure, for sure. And one correction, and it's books.
Books. Yes, sorry, there's an S at the end. I did only put the second book.
You guys only have a glimpse to at my second book, but there's another great one out there, When Bosses Go Wild. And here's my phone number too. You guys have been a great group. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. Look, we're about 15, 20 years removed in our careers, and some of you just graduated. You have a bright future ahead of you, and you graduated from a fantastic program. You've had great leadership around you all this time. You've been in a controlled environment for 4 years, right? Now it's your opportunity to shine and make us as fellow alum and faculty proud, or more proud than we already are of you today. So don't take any prisoners, be what God made you to be, and get out there and kick ass, guys. Have fun with it. This is not like something you should be dreading. You should be waking up in the morning and saying, man, you know what? I have an opportunity to impress people today with my speech, with my expressions, with how I approach the world's problems, right? That's how you're going to be noticed in life. So just make us proud, guys. I mean, you're in a great point in your life. So just make it happen. Have fun. Don't make it too stressful on yourself. The job, the money, the fame will come.
Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate your time. This is the formal end of the presentation, as well as the formal end of the speaker series. So thanks again to Diana for recording all of this, getting them uploaded, to share the wisdom with everyone from here on out. So thank you all, and to all of our wonderful speakers as well. Thank you very much. We will hang out for about 5 more minutes. If you have something just more informally that if you want to say to Eddie or to any of us. But thank you very much, and have a wonderful week. And thank you, everyone.
Y'all stay safe.